Welcome to the HM2 Encyclopedia video. In this video I'm going to go through with a brief explanation of the pedals I have, a little bit about the builders if there's much knowledge on them, whether it's DIY or production or one-offs. Let me know what kind of HM2 you like or specifically which one you're using. Comment below. Down in the description box I'll have everything time-stamped, so if you want to jump around or if you're looking for something specific, that's where all the information will be. Thanks for watching. Alright, so we've got the Boss offerings, got the original HM2, the HM2W, and the OD20, which is an overdrive distortion multi-effects pedal. It's digital, so the HM2 setting, it's close, but close in the way that, like, what's an example? Like the DoD death metal pedal is close to an HM2. Like, it kind of sounds like it, but still very, very artificial sounding. Just my opinion, but this doesn't really hit the mark. It's very close. I would say this is about 99% accurate, but that last remaining 1%, it just, I don't know, it falls short in the mid-range department. I mean, it's unbelievable how close they got it, but I don't know, all they had to do is duplicate their own pedal. I don't know why they're incapable of doing that. Nonetheless, if you're in a band with this sound, having one guitar player use one of these each, it would probably be very complementary. You might actually have some like depth to your tone instead of just like straight chainsaw. So just something to think about. All right, if we're talking about DUNWICH, this is a good place to start. This is the modified or modded HM2, the unnamed, left hand, whatever you want to call it. 4-band EQ, soft and hard clipping, volume and gain. This is a pretty cool pedal. You can get extremely nasty mids messing around with the low mid control, because you got low mid, high, and low. So that one's pretty cool. I modeled the version 1 DIY, or I should say just the DUNWICH DIY HM2 after that, if it's not painfully obvious. The DUNWICH DIY HM2 only had a 3-band EQ. It's not as expanded as the production version, but this is acid etched. Yeah, this thing sounds really good. Same thing, hard soft clipping. These PCBs are long gone. I mean, I think these were probably released back in like 2017 or so. Got the Nihilist. So this is a no knob pedal, but there are, I believe it's 11 internal trim pots in here. So you have full control over the EQ and the shape of the EQ. So you have a engage, disengage pedal, or switch, excuse me. And then for the other switch, think of how the Rat pedal has a filter control. This basically engages or disengages the filter or the filtering trim pot inside. This is the DUNWICH Wraith M2. This is more or less a Rat style pedal with an HM2. You'll notice this has a clipping potentiometer, which is pretty cool. It's not just a toggle switch, so you can actually you can get two very different types of clipping and kind of blend them together. There's also a clean blend for this circuit, to where the, I guess, standard Wraith M2 is without the clean blend, but it has all the other controls. So once Nick Williams kind of came back from his hiatus or ending DUNWICH amps, he released a bunch of DIY pedals, and this is another DIY HM2. You get your 3-band EQ, clean blend, volume gain, and then basically just a simple on-off for the hard and soft clipping. These PCBs are available through God City Instruments website. Let's see what else. Possibly the most infamous DUNWICH amps pedals, the Tyrant. This is made for the band Nails. Simple 4-knob external controls. From what I can tell, I think there's 2 versions of this. The one I have here is a later version, and there are 4 internal trim pots to basically adjust the frequency and the Q of the EQ parameters. So this thing can get extremely nasty. Last official DUNWICH pedal, I think this is called the HM2ifier, which is basically just a HM2 EQ. Easily one of the best HM2 EQs I've heard. You get your high and low control, loud, which is your volume signal, and then blend, how much of it you want to clean blend into the signal. Very powerful, very effective. I think Kurt Ballou might be the only other person that has that, to be honest. So these things, you're not going to find these anywhere. Now, for pedals that aren't technically DUNWICH amps, but are definitely collaboration with Nick Williams, you got the Doom Saw. This is a 1 knob, which is basically just your gain control. Heavy, extremely heavy low end HM2, except these things are EQ'd beautifully, where you've got massive amounts of low end, but the mid-range grind still cuts right through. It's a really impressive pedal for how simple these are. So the difference, aside from the color, this has an internal volume control, which typically with an HM2 I would just crank the volume. I think if you were using this on bass guitar, that would be kind of nice to cut back the level control to about 3 o'clock, maybe a little bit before, just so you could get a bit more dynamic bass tone than just a grindy HM2 sound. Another collaboration, or continuation I should say, that Nick Williams had was with Magic Pedals here. And as you can tell, this looks very similar to the modded HM2, the unnamed HM2, which it more or less is just a straight reissue of it through Magic Pedals. It's a smaller, more pedal board friendly size and layout. Now for the last one that is a Nick Williams collaboration was with Acid Rain, PEDALWORKS, and Ted Bison of the band Orphaned. So this is called the Judas. This pedal, Steve from Does It Doom described this perfectly. It literally sounds like you're opening the gates of hell. You can get a very close HM2 sound. With this pedal, you can also get one of the most destructive, nastiest, just terrifying tones. Like this pedal is like a goddamn wrecking ball. It's got a really cool design. As far as the circuitry is concerned, that you have a fuzz and a distortion. So you can set the levels for the fuzz and distortion, and then you have a blend for the fuzz and distortion. So, I mean, there's endless options the way you can set this thing. You know, you can have it where it's just kind of coloring the sound, where you can have it where it's just, like I was saying earlier before, just like an absolute wrecking ball. So these are really cool too, because this isn't like a special edition. They're all acid etched. And you can tell there's, just take a look at Jesus right there. There's a lot of detail in the etching, so awesome pedal. Should check those out. All right, straight out of Brazil, the Oliver HM20 heavy metal. This thing is an absolute beast. This was licensed by Roland for Oliver to build in Brazil, because apparently Roland Boss couldn't get their products into Brazil, so I'm not really sure the detailed story behind that, but that is supposedly where this pedal comes from. I've looked inside it at the circuit board. I mean, everything looks very similar to a Boss. It's not an exact layout, but still very close. I don't know, because I can't find the schematic online, but I don't know what actually differs between this, or if this is just a parts tolerance issue where the one I got just sounds like an absolute beast. But this pedal into, what is it, the Bandit 112, the Super Sat, like the teal stripe, I mean, that is like the nastiest combo I've heard. So this thing's in really good shape. I scored this off of someone that I was accosting on eBay. I saw that they were a seller out of Brazil, and I sent him a message and I was like, if you can find one of these, I'll pay for it. So I did. He did give me kind of a convenience charge, let's call it, on top of what these normally go for. But nonetheless, I'm really glad I got one of these. If you can find one, I would highly recommend picking it up. So you got the DoD Super American Metal and the DoD American Metal. This was more or less the direct competition for Boss from the US. DoD, before it changed to Digitech and moved to China for manufacturing, was located in the US in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah to be specific. The American Metal was kind of influenced by the HM2, where the Super American Metal was just a straight up HM2. I believe this is the exact same circuitry. There are just value changes throughout the circuit. You know, it's probably sacrilege me saying this, but I like this more than the Boss. Like, this is a really good sounding pedal. The Boss is extremely nasty, and you know what you're getting, but this thing actually sounds like it has that tone with intention instead of by accident. Both of these, on my DoD pedals, I modify to have a 2.1 millimeter center negative Boss style DC jack, replace the knobs, replace the LEDs, and then in replacing the AC with a DC jack, it renders the battery useless, which is fine because I never use batteries. So if you want to do that, I basically just flipped the battery compartment backwards and act like a block off plate, basically. Yeah, these are awesome pedals. This is a bit lighter in tone. It's not as aggressive, but the Super American Metal sounds absolutely killer. And it's a rad color too. These things are built like tanks. All right, so we got Monger up next. The necrotic damage is a highly tweakable Rat HM2 mashup. The Haxon is the ARION Metal Master with a couple of internal mid-tweaking trims, so this one's got a little bit more than the original. What the hell is this? The American Thrash Master. So what you got here is a DoD FX56B, and then you have the Faust EQ, which is 3-band HM2 EQ. Looks like there's a EQ blend and a mid boost. To be perfectly honest, I haven't messed with this that much. I need to do that. This is an extremely accurate HM2, the necrotic damage. I mean, it's, from what I remember doing the demo, this thing's like basically a perfect one-to-one. You can do the EQ bypass right here and basically give yourself a rat. So this thing is a really good recording device that you can use the rat section for bass and the HM2 section for recording guitar. Got a 3-band EQ, volume, your rat filter distortion, and then an EQ blend of how much you actually want in there. Let's see what else. Yeah, the Super American Metal sounds great. I really like this. Both of these are offered as DIY projects. You can order the PCB, or you can just order the full pedal to have built for you if you don't want to build it yourself. All right, now we got A.I.B custom effects out of France, a couple production pedals, and 3 modified pedals. The modifications for these don't exactly make these one-to-one HM2s. The point is more or less to complement what these pedals already are with an HM2. So you've got the controllability of the metal zone, definitely a push towards an HM2 from the DS1, and the HM3 is still very much an HM3, but it has, if I remember correctly, actually significantly lower noise floor, but the HM2 EQ. So here with the lick, or lich, I guess it's lick, this is an octave HM2. This is really good for black metal or the maw. This is just like the crowning achievement of HM2s from A.I.B. Dead silent noise floor. You've got a high and a low gain saturation switch on both of these with a level control. And these two, especially the maw, I mean, this thing is absolutely, like I said, just dead silent. And I'm not sure if many people know this, but not only are the circuits and everything internally hand wired and hand soldered, these images are painted by Jerome at A.I.B also. So I'm not exactly sure how he transfers them, but these are all his. So this entire pedal is all his idea, all his art. It's really impressive. All right, now we got the HM2 chainsaw. Little shameless self-promotion here. This is hands down the best one-to-one HM2 replica there is. This is the prototype that I built. So basically, there will be a link in the description below, but if you want to build this yourself, the PCBs are dirt cheap. They're under $7, which is the cheapest one you can get. That's part of the reason why I did it. Got all these jokers charging $12 for a basic HM2 PCB, which is a ripoff. When the production versions are available, which by the time of this video there still are a couple left, this is the enclosure that it comes in. CNC drilled, powder coat, UV print, top mount jacks. There is a demo for this up on the page, so if you're curious what it looks like, search that out. And it's, I mean, basically a damn near dead on one-to-one to the boss. All right, the Earthbound Audio Throat Locust. This thing is filthy. Don't see much about this pedal, unfortunately. Yeah, 3-band EQ. I believe this is a clipping switch, your level gain, and then you got a mid-frequency control, which is always a thumbs up in my book. Any modern HM2 should have a mid-frequency control. This pedal, very much like the XIX HMD1, is great that you could use it for anything from like razor sharp death metal to just punishing doom tones. Yeah, check out Earthbound Audio. The Throat Locust is an awesome, awesome pedal. So we got the AIRIS effects, Merciless Distortion. This is more or less a HM2 overdrive. These are, I think, long out of production. I think AIRIS has put out an HM808, which I'm guessing is probably along the same lines as this, maybe a bit more refined. This is good for tighter music, something you want a bit more articulation with, being more of an overdrive and less a full-on distortion. Top mount jacks, pretty cool, almost like Geiger type art on there. Yeah, AIRIS is out of Canada, check them out. So we got the BEHRINGER HM300, the heavy metal pedal. This thing is plastic, 95% of the weight is in the base plate, just fine. Just don't think you're going to be able to use this for touring. This is going to be the least expensive way to get an HM2. Brand new. These are, they shouldn't be more than 30 bucks typically. And look at that. You know, it's got to be good. I don't know what the hell's going on there, but that guy's into it. Yeah, these are dirt cheap. Don't spend more than 30 bucks on these. It's not worth it. All right, now for the TC Electronic iMaster. Personally, I would suggest this over the BEHRINGER if you want to spend the least amount of money possible for a produced pedal. This is a heavy-duty metal enclosure. The EQ is maxed out internally, so you just got your gain and volume control. The only real downside of this pedal, they have the wiring for the switch incorrect, in my opinion. So when you depress the pedal, the switch, it doesn't engage. It doesn't engage the circuit until you release it. So keep that in mind. If you're wanting to kind of use this as a kill switch, you might have to rely on like a tuner pedal or a dedicated kill switch. Yeah, I don't know if they meant to do that on purpose or if it was just overlooked, but I think that's actually a really, really big design flaw. So basically you push it, it doesn't engage it, you let go, then it engages. So these are typically, God, 60 bucks US approximately. Don't pay more than that. It's not worth it. It is a hell of a lot more sturdy than the BEHRINGER, but nonetheless, it's just mass-produced, so it's not really worth it. All right, this is the BLACKHAWK amplifiers, Heimdall 2. This is a very interesting pedal. I wouldn't call this an HM2. It's HM2 inspired, meaning this is a very dirty pedal. Like, I'm not sure what it's based on, but it's I would think this would be wonderful for using for like Doom. It has an HM2 flavor. You have to dial in fairly specific to get that tone, but this isn't like a straight ahead chainsaw pedal. So if you want something with the least amount of HM2 tone to it, but nonetheless having a wrecking ball of a pedal, this is a good way to go. It's extremely filthy, and BLACKHAWK is located out of, what, Portland, Oregon, I believe, or somewhere in Oregon, so you can check them out. All right, KINK guitar pedals. This is the Oath of the Goat. They are out of Melbourne, Australia. This is a really good one-to-one HM2, damn near identical. It's got cool art on it and would be a great option. What the hell's that sticking to it? Great option if you live in the Southern Hemisphere and don't want to pay an arm and a leg for shipping. Yeah, good way to go. Good service, well built. Check them out. All right, this is the ARIA Pro 2, the Ultra Metal. This gets the award for the ugliest HM2 I have ever seen. It's another plastic enclosure. Let's see, made in China. Yeah, it has a really strange sound, honestly. It's kind of like it sounds like an HM2, but it's kind of like rounded off, if that makes sense. It doesn't have, like, it's lacking the roar that a Boss does, and it's lacking the sharpness. Like, it's kind of just dull. So, yeah, this is more of a collector's item if you're looking for that versus a high quality or good sounding HM2 for that matter. All right, so this should be the Swedish Chainsaw Cubed. I don't have a pedal built of this as of right now, but it's a 3-band EQ, low, mid, high with the gain and level. Really good sounding HM2. If you want to build one of these, you can order it off of OSH Park. That's in Oregon, USA. My only real criticism of this is the PCB layout. Like, you have to, here, let me grab one of these. When you build the pedal, like, it's a 1590 BB, but you gotta do it horizontally, which I'm not a huge fan of that. I would much rather, if it was this size enclosure, I would much rather build it that way, but you can see there's not enough room. Regardless, these sound really good. All right, this is the XIX HMD1. This is arguably, I don't know, this is one of the most unique HM2s I've ever seen. This is from Siberia, Russia. 3-band EQ, gain level, and the focus is more or less a mid-sweep control. So it's in this cool, unique enclosure, sturdy metal, top mount jacks. Yeah, it'd be nice if all the garbage in the world could clear up. I mean, this guy could get some more units out of Russia, but well, I'll leave it at that. These are awesome. If you can find one, buy one. I know the earlier models, I don't think they had these markings for the decibel output, but the later ones did. Simple orange LED right here. These things can do anything from like absolute punishing doom to like razor sharp, nasty mid death metal tones. All right, so here we've got 2 dead end effects PCBs that I need to finish up and complete the pedals. The Hive is a clone of the Guillotone P0 or PS024. I believe it's the distortion H, which I think stands for like harmonic distortion. The Tuco, this is a power driver, the PW2. So I have a demo of the power driver. It's kind of a pseudo Big Muff type pedal that Boss put out. However, if you roll the volume back, it does quite a passable HM2 tone. The Hive here, the Guillotone, has a, what is this, 5-band EQ. You've got high, mid-high, mid-low, and low, with your level and distortion down here. So I need to get on finishing these up so everyone can hear what these sound like. All right, so here we've got the KMA Machines Worm, all the variations that I'm aware of. This being the first, this is hands down the nastiest one you're gonna find. I mean, this thing sounds absolutely disgusting. I love it. The Worm HM. So these are identical in appearance. So when I open these up, the original was a through hole, meaning the components were soldered through the PCB, which tends to have a slight effect on the sound and the overall noise of the pedal, to where this version, it appears that they started using surface mount components, which typically lowers the noise a little bit. This version, the HM, actually sounds much more like a Boss HM2, where this is a filthy, mid-pushed modern version. This is more or less a par down size. Same external controls, except they took the EQ control from inside and just put it right here, so you can either do the HM2 or the KMA specific EQ. This still has these center frequencies that you can adjust via a trim pot in all of these. KMA did change that with a Guardian of the Worm, where you have sliders and you have the frequency control, these little external trims right here. Same thing, you've got your EQ style, and you also have a clipping option, which is new to the Worm, and a clean blend. So this is a Worm and a noise gate. If you're running this into a already overdriven amp, personally, I wouldn't do that with this pedal. It does have 2 ins, 2 outs, but it is, I don't know how to explain this. It's a TRS, meaning tip ring sleeve. Most of the normal instrument cables are just tip and sleeve. So this way you can send out a Y splitter TRS to your effects loop, which, if I remember correctly, is basically puts the effects loop, or excuse me, puts the noise gate in the effects loop at an appropriate spot, to where it knocks down the noise from the amp, versus if you just run an in and an out, the noise gate is basically just going to hit the instrument entering the pedal. Personally, I would have liked to have seen this same layout, except a full send and return, meaning you would have had the noise gate silencing the instrument that was inputting to the pedal, and then you would have had the amp's effects loop send and return dedicated to those. The external trigger, I don't know, I think that's kind of pointless, to be honest. You can make a kill switch. They're really simple. You can have someone build you a kill switch for probably $10, $15. It does sound awesome though. I mean, it's a Worm. They kind of just nailed the modern HM2 tone. But yeah, if you're looking for the nastiest one, hands down, this is it. These are more collector's items. They only made, I believe, 200. Yeah, 200. This is number 65. And this, like I said, more or less the same thing, except you've got a nice small package. It's not going to take up a lot of room on your pedal board top mount jack, so it's really convenient. All right, so here we've got inverted cross audio out of Spain. This is just the inverted cross chainsaw. You got a hard clipping selector switch here, 3-band EQ, level and gain, acid etched, which is awesome. I mean, these things are, you want to talk about completely hand built. If I'm not mistaken, he etches the boards, the PCBs, drills them, etches the enclosures. I mean, it's really impressive. Yeah, so I opted for one of these without the blend knob. I love this image, this split skull with a bug and eye. This right here was sent as a gift, and this thing's awesome. Beat me to using the HM2 Colt logo for a pedal, but nonetheless, this is an OCD type overdrive with an HM2 EQ. So, whereas this is just a full-on filthy, disgusting distortion pedal. But same thing, acid etched, looks great. These things sound absolutely filthy. I've got a demo for the chainsaw, but not the Mars, not yet. All right, so here we've got the God City Instruments, or GCI, offerings. This isn't all of them, but this is most. So what we got here, this orange pedal with this hideous labeling that I did. I was in a hurry. This is the HM1, and what this is more or less a Boss DS1 with a, if I remember correctly, a parallel HM2 EQ. So you definitely get that DS1 like spitting tone, if you know what I'm talking about. Like if you really push a DS1 on a on an overdrive or on a broken up amp, like there's this kind of like almost like spitting tone that it has. So you got high, low, shape, volume, and distortion. This right here, what the hell is this? This is the Murdoch Jr. It is a pre-populated HM2 EQ PCB. I have this standalone, but its design is basically to add it to a pedal. So if you were to add you could add that to like a rat pedal, have the rat circuit, and then go into this and then out of the pedal, or, you know, multi-circuit board pedals where you wanted a flavor. And this is just a blend control, so however much of the HM EQ you want. The Jugendstil, I know that's German, I'm not pronouncing it correctly. So this is pretty cool. You got volume, fuzz control, loud, which is your volume, and then sweep, like a mid control. I really like the way this sounds. It's a very cleaned up sounding, almost like rock and roll style HM2. My only, I don't know, the only thing I don't like about this, I was really hoping that it was going to be like a full-on fuzz pedal. It doesn't get as thick as, I don't know, I would suspect a fuzz pedal would. It's more of kind of like a fuzz flavor, if that makes sense, and not just a full-on fuzz pedal with an HM2 EQ. Nonetheless, though, this, like I said, this is a really good cleaned up sounding HM2. If you didn't want something that was just absolute mess. This is the Murdoch Plus. It's an overdrive with an HM2 EQ, so you got your level and gain and then your EQ blend. So if you didn't want full HM2 EQ, you could kind of cut it back to where it was appropriate for your tone. All three of these, you can order the PCBs off of GodCityInstruments.com. All right, so I've got the DECIBELICS Angry Swede. To my knowledge, this is the only mini HM2. Don't let that fool you though. This thing sounds absolutely huge. It's got more low end, kind of more of a boom to the sound, which is better having too much than not enough, because you can either roll the low end back on your amp, or you can just, you know, so slightly cut back the low end to maybe like 90% or so. This isn't the quietest production HM2 as far as the noise floor is concerned, but it's pretty damn quiet. I would say you don't even really need a noise gate. I mean, you don't need a noise gate in general, but if you're looking for a cleaner, less noisy sound, this is definitely a way to go. This is one of the earlier versions, number 48. Now there is one that has a little blend control, a little clean blend on the side. And I don't think it's that much more expensive than this was. All right, what started is transmutation devices, went to This Heavy Earth. These are all versions of the Crust of Fiction. Started out is 3-band EQ, clean blend, level gain. Same thing here with a clipping option and an EQ only switch to a full-on, basically deluxe version with an expanded EQ. Yeah, I haven't done a demo for this, so I still need to dig in and see what this is fully capable of doing. All right, IDIOTBOX effects, Dungeon Master. This is kind of along the lines of a muff style pedal with an HM2 EQ. This is a pretty cool pedal. My only criticism of this, it doesn't seem to quite have the output than HM2 does, so definitely has a different intended use than what I would typically use them for. I think this is pretty cool throwback. There's an old video game image on it. All right, the FOWL Sound Saw Boost, just what it sounds like, HM2 boost pedal. This has significant more low end, so typically when I was using this, cut it back a bit. But yeah, if you don't want a full-on distortion pedal, this is a good way to go. Like I said, it's got a lot of added low end. If you're concerned about the tone not being heavy enough. All right, the SDM from JD Music Labs, now defunct JD Music Labs. They were out of Belgium. Yeah, Belgium. And this is just a standard 1-to-1 4-knob HM2. Remember this sounding pretty good. I do have a demo of this up. Like I said, it's just a straight across 1-to-1. Hey, it's another plastic pedal. This is a another ARIA, or ARI, I don't pronounce that. Anyways, ultra metal, same thing, plastic enclosure, probably coming from the same factory that the ARION Metal Master did. I mean, just looks way too similar. Yeah, I like this foam pad underneath from Japan. And typically these sound pretty good, but the plastic enclosure, I mean, it's just gonna wear and get more brittle the more you use it and handle it. So more of a collector's item than anything. All right, so this is the Unearthly Gassed HM2. You got a 3-band EQ, clean blend. You got your hard and soft clipping. Yeah, I believe, man, these, I think they come from Australia, if not New Zealand. Forgive me, but I forget which one specifically. Yeah, just a pretty straightforward modern HM2. Couple from Anarchy Audio. I've got a modified metal zone. This isn't meant to be an exact HM2. It's kind of bridging the gap between the two. Nonetheless, this is a really, really cool pedal, or modification, I should say. Really makes the metal zone sound nasty, like in the best possible way. And this was the original Anarchy Audio 4-knob, just 1-to-1 HM2 clone. These haven't been made in quite some time. I still need to do a demo on these. Oh boy, more plastic pedals. ROCKTEK Metalworker. If you're buying these, don't buy this. Buy this one. This one sounds good. This one kind of sounds like an HM2, but barely. So the red one is made in Taiwan and the black one's made in China. So yeah, this one sounds like an HM2 straight up. This one kind of so-so. Sounds like a weak signal HM2. And it's not just this pedal specifically. I've seen a couple other demos and it just kind of doesn't really push the tone that hard. Your battery compartment's in here if you want to use a battery. But once again, plastic, better for collector's items than actually using. All right, the Bare Amps heavier metal. I would say this is definitely up there with one of the better cleaned up HM2s. It has a low noise floor, not the quietest by any means. That crown belongs to A.I.B, but nonetheless it is quiet. You've got these trim controls for the 3-band EQ. Nothing too extreme in these controls, but more kind of fine tuning, which is nice. You've got your clipping control here, and then this quench knob right here. Think of this kind of like a rat pedal, like the filter. So it can get really dark and gloomy sounding, or you can kind of find a sweet spot and just cut out the any like white noise off the top end. But yeah, if you can find one of these sound really good. It's a really good HM2 sound. These are from Dead Air. These are both the Sawzall. This is the Ultra Plus, and this is just the regular Sawzall. So the smaller one, I don't have the pedal, I just have this. I got rid of the other one because I had this board that I'm gonna build up for myself. So you got gain and level, you got your 3-band EQ, level control, and then the frequency control for each. Now, with this one, there is a toggle switch right here in the middle, and you can basically click it to one side and just get the HM EQ, or click it to the full drive. And this thing is really articulate. I believe it's based off of a Distortion Plus, mildly. So this is the expanded version. It's got the Q factor control with it and no EQ only option. This thing's pretty cool. This is like, I don't know, Dead Air knocked it out of the park with HM2 style overdrive. Like, just check out the demo I did of this pedal. It's extremely articulate, yet it's got a lot of force behind it. Really enjoy this. All right, so this is a Griffin Effects DIY project, HM2 3-band EQ. Personally, I wouldn't suggest doing this. The layout's very strange, and how boards are typically done. You populate this side, and then on the back side, the potentiometers get mounted. So when the enclosure's open, you basically set it down like this, screw the pots to the enclosure, and then solder everything in. With this pedal, it's designed for everything to be more or less upside down, depending on how you're looking at it. So I guess it's true to the Boss in that sense, because everything inside the Boss HM2 is upside down. But personally, I don't like that because you have to use the long leg pots for that, and you have to be very, very concerned with the height and overall size of all the components, like the taller ones, like the capacitors. Yeah, I don't know, there are much better DIY options than this guy. All right, the ARION Metal Master, hands down the best plastic HM2 pedal you're ever gonna find. Yeah, after I go through all these, this is definitely one that I'm gonna keep long term. I love this pedal. So much low end, holy shit, there's so much low end in this pedal. This is a great HM2 for recording. I mean, since it's plastic, I wouldn't play shows with it personally. I wouldn't tour with it. If I can suggest that to anyone, it's not gonna hold up long term. But like I said, great for recording. Sounds like an absolute monster. And you got this cool dual outlet. So you can either have a affected 2 outs, or you can have basically a one HM2 out and then a bypass. So it's kind of a cool little bonus to have on this pedal. Tony's a good dude. The Humongous Fuzz, let's start with this. This is more or less a Boss Hyper Fuzz FZ2 that sounds awesome, by the way, except he threw in a bunch of extra bonuses with this. So you notice how the Boss HyperFuzz only has 2 modes, Fuzz 1, Fuzz 2. Well, with the BEHRINGER Super Fuzz, I think it's what it's called, which is the clone of the Boss pedal, the slider control for the fuzz modes, you can sit it right between Fuzz 1 and Fuzz 2, and it basically runs the 2 of them parallel. So that's what Tony did with this. The Fuzz 3, it's really cool. It gives you a lot of options. Or you can just use the boost setting, just like the HyperFuzz has. Now, the reason I'm talking about this is because the extra. So you have a HyperFuzz, and then you can blend in kind of like a boosted HM2 EQ into it. This is a great HM2 fuzz. Like, I think it looks awesome. I don't know, every time I look at this, I know it's modeled to look like the HyperFuzz, but this color combination, this always makes me think of an old Nintendo Entertainment system. So, anyways, here's the regular HM Too Many Clones. Truer statement has never been made. Simple, small package, straight to the point, sounds great. I don't think you can get these colored. I mean, you could probably twist Tony's arm. I don't think he really cares. But anyways, this is like special number 1080, which is long story short, I think it's a chemical that is still being used in New Zealand. Yeah, anyways, toxic shit. So that's why it's the bright orange color. And then if you order the DIY PCBs for the Too Many Clones, Tony has a blog where you can go and replace some of the values and get basically DoD FX56B clone. So that's what this is. This is more or less a DoD clone using the same PCB as the HM2 version that he's got. All right, so the ROCKSON metal rocker. This is a pretty rare pedal. Sounds good as long as you power it correctly. So just like the Boss, you can do a battery under the foot switch here. If you are using external power, this is absurd. It has a 300 milliamp draw, which for reference, the Boss, I believe, has a 10 milliamp draw. So 30 times more draw than the original. That's just bad engineering in my mind. But yeah, nonetheless, I mean, it sounds good. It's just ridiculous to power. So if you have like a regulated power supply, set it to at least the 250 milliamp draw for the 9-volt setting. That's what I did with my Voodoo Labs, and it sounds pretty good. If you just hook it up to a normal 100 milliamp draw 9-volt, it's gonna sound underpowered and like there's something wrong with it. All right, for the Dunn effects, so it got some pretty cool ones here. Death Knob, this is just like it says, HM2 EQ blender. You've got your external blend control. Internally, you have a high-low volume and gain, I believe. Like, it's pretty much full controls internally with the trim pots. He did just release an all-external control version of this. So both should be available, I'm assuming. This right here, the FX5X, this is a clone of the DoD American Metal, and this thing sounds awesome. This sounds really good. Over here, we've got the Hierophant, and what do you got? Gain and clean blend external controls. The, what is it, volume, low and high controls are internal on trim pots. This is much heavier than the original. So more destructive sounding. The Death Knob, probably better for a more articulate sound. And then the FX5X, which is, this version's the American Metal. This is good just for an all-around HM2 sound. so this is the PEDALPCB Prometheum. This is just a straight up one-to-one HM2. It's a DIY. I would say order this from PEDALPCB, but honestly you can get a cheaper one for me that sounds much closer to the original. This sounds good, but it's expensive in my opinion. The PCBs are 12 bucks, which personally is overpriced for just a regular HM2. Doesn't really offer anything new. That's why I priced mine under 7 bucks, because that's more realistic. I did build this with the Mylar Greenie caps, like the original Boss made in Japan. And I think it doesn't alter the sound that much, but I think there's probably enough tolerance variance in those components that it kind of gives it more of a Boss feel. So yeah, it's definitely an option, but like I said, for half the price you can buy other HM2 DIY PCBs. All right, these are the TAGBOARD effects, blogspot.com, or I think that's what it's called, HM2s. Like if you're looking for a challenge and you want to use stripboard or VeraBoard, I think that's another name for it, this is a good way to go. I wouldn't recommend it for beginners. So many endless possibilities to make mistakes while you build these. This is the full HM2. This is just the EQ. Both 3-band EQ volume, but obviously the full distortion pedal has the gain control. These ones I built acid etched. It's a little sloppy, but still looks pretty cool. I think the images match the quality of the etching. Just everything's nasty. So yeah, I would definitely only try these out if you wanted a challenge, or maybe you want to practice your Zen. So they are fun though. Acid etch, VeraBoard, give it a try. All right, this is the MUSIKDING HM2. This is a kit that you can buy, I believe. Yeah, MUSIKDING has to be located in Germany. I don't know, honestly this thing sounds more kind of like an HM300, a Behringer, than the actual Boss HM2. More kind of like high-mid focused. Here's the AION Graviton metal distortion. It's a one-to-one Boss HM2. Doesn't sound exactly like the Boss. It's a bit more high-mid, I think, if memory serves correctly. But this is the full kit. You can just buy the PCB, or you can get the PCB with all the components, basically everything you need. I think they might even sell you wire too. Maybe that's the only thing you need is a soldering iron and wire, but everything else comes in the kit. It's a bit expensive. It's like almost 90 bucks, but it's kind of cool. Like everything's taken care of. You just got to buy it and put it together. Oh boy, if it is another plastic pedal. This one's the Ken Multi Ultra Metal, another Ultra Metal. You've never seen another Ultra Metal. Yeah, this sounds pretty decent. Same thing. I think it's the what am I trying to say? The ARION Metal Master enclosure. Same dual outlet, battery compartment up top. I mean, these things were just probably cranked out of a factory like no one's business. So yeah, definitely, once again, with all the rest of the plastic ones, more of a collector's item than actually useful in real life, because it will probably get broken. All right, the FUZZLORD HM6. So FUZZLORD's out of the US, state of Oregon. This is pretty straightforward as far as like modern HM2 options. You got your 3-band EQ, high, mid, low, gain, volume, and then clean blend. So I would say this is a very well cleaned up HM2. personally, I was assuming that FUZZLORD's more doom focused, that this would be, how can I say this, like more kind of like fuzz or big muff based, but it's kind of just like a straight up HM2, just cleaned up with modern option controls here. All right, this is the Signal Smasher monolith pedal. Signal Smasher, I believe, is out of France. And boy, I would be willing to bet this is a DUNWICH modded HM2 clone. It's got the same 4-band EQ, high-low, low-mid, high-mid. You got your hard and soft clipping, gain, and level. Yeah, so this was a DIY that I built, kind of little John Carpenter, Rowdy Roddy Piper worship, but you know, cool movie. Yeah, you don't see these very often. It does sound good though, I do like it. All right, so the first version of what is known as, or was known as Lone Wolf, was Enormous Door, and that was the LHP, the left-hand left-hand path. Same setup as the left-hand Wrath, except you have a diode selector for hard clipping, and then this switch basically toggles between two different input capacitors. Yeah, so, and then you got the deluxe version of that, which this is the diode selector for that. This is an expanded rotary selector tool for the input capacitor, which, I don't know, I think only 2 of those values actually sound worthwhile. I don't know, the more time that goes on, the less I could care about a clean blend. HM2 is disgusting, keep it that way, don't need to blend in anything. This is probably the only modification on this pedal that I like from the original, and that is the mid sweep. It's nice to be able to find a specific center frequency for your mid range. And then these two, all of these have the exact same circuit board. Just keep that in mind. There are minor, very, very minor value changes throughout these. The reason, like, while this dismember one looks so different, these are the low, mid, and high center frequencies. So basically, what was done is, if you look at the HM2 gyrator EQ section, the 330 ohm resistor, typically, some people will do the 100 ohm, or 100K, excuse me, but that doesn't have that great of an effect as from what I've experienced. So typically these are replacing the 330 ohm resistors. These are 500 ohm. Personally, I would say if you're going to do that, I would use a 1K ohm. It's just, you have more of a sweep with that. Clean blend, there's that rotary switch again, and then the normal 6 controls. If I hadn't said already, that is the diode selector. And then on the bloodbath, let's see, no diode selector. You got your normal 6 controls, and then I believe there's a mid sweep and a clean blend on this one. But yeah, I mean, they're generally, you're paying for the enclosure, more or less. They're almost identical, and you're gonna get about the same sound. Personally, out of all the ones I've played, I think this one is probably the best overall, because you can adjust the EQ parameters a bit more. It's too bad the Deluxe doesn't have that, because the high end, for example, on the left-hand Wrath it's a bit much, and then you have a presence control on top of that to make it even brighter, which isn't very necessary. But yeah, this is the first from that, and then your regular left-hand Wrath, and then you had a Deluxe, and then the signature ones. But yeah, they're all the same circuit board, in case anyone's wondering. All right, now for Abominable electronics, you've got the Evil N.E.W, which is, let's see, 2 control, one's a gain, one is an EQ blend, I forget which one's which. And then you have the full version of the Evil N.E.W. This is the PEDALBOARD unfriendly chaotic Evil N.E.W. There is one in between that has one EQ or set of EQ controls removed from it, and it is, I believe, a 125 enclosure, which for reference is like that size. This is an overdrive, this is an overdrive, this is a full-on distortion. This is much closer to the original HM2 than these are. Being overdrive, obviously it's not as heavy, where this actually has, what is it, I think the destroy button. This really kind of almost turns it into like some like Doom machine. Typically I would just like using this as a straight HM2, but this, you've got your low, mid, and high control, your center frequency, and your Q control, basically, with volume and gain. This was done with God City Instruments, as was this. So kind of a collaboration between the two of them on that, where the Throne Torture, I think that's what this is called, is just Abominable by themselves. Here's the BYOC, the Swede. It's a build your own clone. You can buy this as just a PCB, or you can get the full kit with the printed enclosure. This is just a straight up one-to-one replica of the original Boss. It sounds pretty good, nice and heavy. Similar to the way the Angry Swede is a little bit heavier, this one is too. So it's kind of nice having the extra weight in the tone. None of these pedals are HM2s, so let's start there. The power driver, I believe, is Boss's answer to the Big Muff pedal, and strangely has a very reminiscent HM2 EQ. This has a hell of a lot more output than the HM2, so if you do get one of these, they can be a bit expensive. I think this is Boss's least produced pedal of all time. There's like 19,000 of these made, which is a lot, but you know, it's not 35,000. So what you got to do is just roll the level back. It's about 3 o'clock, right below 3, and these things make an awesome HM2 tone. Hyper metal, kind of a hyper fuzz heavy metal pedal. With this, a good starting point, I would suggest rolling the low back, because there is a ton of low end on this. Maybe 3 o'clock or so. And if you want a very unique HM2 pedal, the Swollen Pickle, but it's gotta be this one. There's a bunch of different variations, and the Swollen Pickle Jumbo Fuzz MK2, Mark II that is. I think the one before this, the Mark I, which might have actually been even a bigger pedal, I think those are the only ones that will do it. I know I've got a demo up. You can listen to this. Played this through VTM 5150. 5150 was just like the band End uses. So that was kind of like the whole point of that video. These things sound phenomenal. Like it's a really good full HM2 sound, but definitely has its own flavor. It doesn't sound like an identical Boss clone. This actually, the power driver sounds a hell of a lot closer to the original HM2 than this does, but this will get the trick done.